Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a video covering the Xenns Top Pro. I've got the unboxing already right here. You've got a great carrying case in the box, 3 different sets of tips, 2 silicone, 1 foam. You've got the interchangeable default cable here, which actually I do like. It's a lightweight cable. It's not a lot of meat or girth around the ears, so it does feel quite nice for long durations of time. And the chassis, of course, has this beautiful 3D printed chassis that is translucent in a blue tone, and it does have great ergonomics here on the shell. The nozzle's not too wide, not too long. It is lightweight and rather comfortable for several hours on end. Interchangeable cable, again, 3544, and it's 2-pin, so you can use whatever 2-pin cable you have on deck that you might prefer over this. I did find for the ear tips, the balanced silicone ear tips did work the best for me for gaming, and we'll get into that now. But just objectively speaking, I'll show you guys the graph. It does follow HBB's curve, and it's going to be a fun set for music with a lot of energy in the low end, and it's going to be a fun set for story-driven games as well. It's got more sub-bass than mid-bass, and that impact is something that carries over into every title that I have tried. It's got a lot of detail in terms of its resolution. It really is a fantastic set with great driver performance here. And this type of a tuning usually works pretty well for gaming, but it's not something that usually crosses into the higher thresholds. And I think that is going to be the case here for the Xenns Top Pro. I'm not going to score it as high as the Xenns Top. And that's because for Valorant, that energy, that emphasis, that prevalence in the low end, that rumble on things, you feel that for almost everything. Some of the footsteps that are more thocky, they have a bit more juice into them, and that makes it feel like it's not trimmed and slimmed. The imaging takes a little bit of a hit because of that as people are inching out from behind a wall, etc. But for this type of a tuning, the imaging performance is still fantastic. It's got this intimate, action-packed flavor with great rumble in Valorant. Gunfire, Vandal, Operator, Sheriff, very prevalent throughout the mix, very tangible in its rumble. Again, not like this massive bass headset, but very prevalent in that region compared to everything else. And because of that, a lot of that gunfire as it's happening, if you get into situations where you're engaging as a team, you're going to lose out on some separation and layering. So if you're playing very competitively, you're playing ranked, you're going to lose out on a little bit of that separation and layering for those lighter things to shine through the mix and really give you a clairvoyant data read as a lot is going on. Abilities shine through with great emphasis, and that is a detraction as well in that region that we're talking about, where you lose out on a little bit of that data read. Now, for sets like that, usually that data read, that depth perception as somebody's inching out from behind a wall gets a little bit more muddled in terms of that clairvoyant data read again. This set actually still handles very well in that regard. So like that tactile, tangible feel as somebody's inching closer, closer, closer from behind a wall, or getting just from a depth closer and closer, closer to you, you feel that at a great level. But if it was just a little bit more trim in that area, I feel like it would be even better. Now, again, because of that impact and that action-packed vibe and feel on gunfire, it does take a hit in separation and layering. Again, when you're getting into the thick of things as a team or in a 2v2, etc., you just lose out on a little bit of that clairvoyant, just breathable data read. If you are in a, let's say, 1v2, again, it's because of that like tactile, tangible feel. It's pretty easy to keep track in terms of emphasis and urgency on like who you need to focus on first. If like 2 are trying to take an angle on you, it's pretty good in that regard. Gunfire around the map, the depth perception is great. I didn't have any issues in that regard. And although there's not a lot of verticality in Valorant, I didn't have any issues with that demarcation of somebody being in heaven or window and I'm below them. It was easy to keep track in that regard. I do think that they handle Valorant well, but it's going to be coming in around a B+ because of some of those things. I think the Mangird Tea Pro, I think the Kiwi Ears Astral are just more breathable and provide just as good of an imaging experience. So that's why it's kind of falling into that A- range. Now, when we get into Apex, you guys can already guess that if it's got a little bit of that issue in Valorant, it's going to have a greater issue in Apex. And that is certainly the case here. In Apex, almost everything has this greater rumble and greater presentation that just isn't as breathable as other things. So when there are Bangalore smokes blowing up, when there are grenades, abilities, etc., you just lose out a bit on this like clear, breathable feel in Apex, making separation and layering quite an issue. If I am shooting one person or somebody is shooting me and we're engaged, like you lose out too much on the lighter taps of somebody getting an angle on you or somebody else joining the fight. If you're in a third party or a fourth party, it becomes deer in the headlights. You just lose out on almost like anything because of that lack of breathability in those situations, because all of that data wants to flood these IEMs. It keeps track of everything. So that thermite that has an elevation ringing in your ear as the storm is behind you and another team comes in, and then you have that gunfire being emphasized as well. It just becomes too hard to keep track in those scenarios. I do find like the general imaging as I'm pushing into a building, the lighter taps, it's easy to keep track and hear the depth perception of where somebody is in a building. I didn't really have any issues with verticality or anything like that. It's really just when you start to become engaged, it's just too fun. And the fun is detracting from the competitiveness. Surprisingly, when we get into Call of Duty, it actually did perform very well, I thought, on the Treyarch mix, again, with the balanced ear tips. I found like airstrikes, mortar strikes in Resurgence didn't really detract from the sensation of hearing people breaking through doors or running above me or sliding, etc. I just didn't find that trim, slim taps in the lower region. Like if it was just a little bit more slimmed down, again, I find like the imaging would be a little bit better in that regard, making the overall experience a little bit better. I didn't have really like any separation or layering type issues with gunfire from my perspective, or when a lot of gunfire was going on. It actually felt pretty easy to keep track of people in general. Gunfire from a distance, again, very easy to calculate where that was coming from around the map. So a fun experience in Call of Duty, one that does feel more breathable than the IEM feels in Apex. So easy to keep track of things. The sub-bass impact in a lot of the audio cues in COD shining through, so very easy to hear things that are happening in a building. I actually do find these to work quite well in Call of Duty. And I did take these into Counter-Strike 2 as well, and I didn't really find the imaging to be quite as good as it felt in Valorant. There's this husk again in the lower end, like on some of the gunfire, and it does pull from things in the mix, like some of the lighter taps. I find like the draw on some of the lighter taps, the imaging could have been better. I just didn't really find or appreciate like this emphasized draw on footsteps in the first place. But I just didn't really find the imaging to be fantastic on this particular set in comparison to how it performed in Valorant and in other titles. So I think that, a lot of people were probably hoping that the Xenns Top Pro would get to the level of the Xenns Top. I personally just don't think that it does for gaming related purposes. Obviously for music listening, I think this set probably fixes some of the issues that audiophiles had on the set. But if I had to choose between the Top Pro and the Top for gaming, my choice would be the Top. Overall, the Xenns Top Pro, I think the package here is absolutely phenomenal. Again, great for music listening purposes, resolving technical sounds fun. It's great for somebody like me that listens to a lot of rap. But for gaming related purposes, it just does not fit the bill past a B, which is where I'm going to be placing this, which falls in line with the Ledshore EJ07M kind of lava. So that is going to be it for this one, guys. I hope it helped. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel. See you guys in the next review. Peace.